the 76ers just completed a 3-1 comeback over the Boston Celtics, and this might be the biggest win for the Sixers in the playoffs, at least since 2001. If you know, the Sixers have had an extensive history with Boston. They haven't beat them in a playoff series before yesterday since 1983, I believe. Or is it 1985? It was one of those. And in the Joel Embiid era especially, the Sixers have always been, always met by the Celtics. The Celtics have always had their number. And not just that, but they also haven't played very well in these elimination games. Game 7s, they've been 0-3, I believe, before this. And for them to finally be able to beat both of these demons at the same time, beating Boston when they came into this series as the lower seed, being able to pull from behind, being able to get all of these wins on the road, it's amazing. It's something really nice to see, especially for a guy like Joel Embiid, who's had so many unlucky injuries, who's been plagued his whole career, finally be able to move on. Finally be able to at least move on from one of these demons. And now the Sixers go and face New York in the second round. So I kind of wanted to talk about the Sixers-Celtics series. I didn't make any videos about it during it as it was happening because I didn't want to jinx it. I was terrified that, if I made a video, I was going to jinx it. But if you watch Dorm Talks, I had Sixers in 6. Now, they didn't get it done in 6, but they could get it done in 7. And I think the biggest the part that you could take away from the Sixers-Celtics series is what I'm believing, for this Sixers team, period, that the Sixers have one of, if not the most talented starting lineup in the league right now, or at least in the playoffs right now, but have probably the worst bench, especially in Game 7, you saw, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe played a crazy amount of minutes, which makes sense. You want your best guys on the floor, but Joel Embiid played 39 minutes, Tyrese Maxey played 45, and VJ Edgecombe played 44, and Paul George played 42. Kelly Oubre played 31, and Quentin Grimes played 26, and then Andre Drummond played 8 minutes, and that was it. Justin Edwards and Dominic Barlow played 2 minutes, but those were the very end of the game. Well, Dominic Barlow was end of the game. Justin Edwards is 2 minutes in the second quarter. That's not sustainable at all. Obviously, if they play against New York, who I don't think their bench is anywhere near as good as Boston's, it's still going to be a hard-fought series because now you're asking these guys to do almost an entire game's worth of play time. But for another at least a 4 or 5 game series in the best case scenario, right? Especially if this goes to another 6 game, 7 game series. For the Sixers Celtics series, it kind of turned into exactly what you would think it would be, in the sense that the Celtics lived and died by the 3. In their last 3 games against the Sixers, they shot below 30% from 3. And that kind of sealed their fate, because in all the games that they did win, they shot 40% or above. I think the only one they didn't was the game 3. It was game 3 or game 4. They shot 35% from the 3-point line. And that was a really close game too. And the biggest thing you take away from it is when you look at Jaylen Brown as their, main first option. When you look at him compared to Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum and Tyrese Maxey as first options, it feels like he's been very limited offensively, which is crazy. Watching him, it sometimes feels like a much worse version of SGA. I had a lot of problems with his game. I think offensively, his biggest issues are, number one, he still isn't very good at handling the ball, right? You see him drive a lot and then kind of pick up the ball and be stuck on his pivot foot. It seems like if he doesn't have a good size advantage mismatch, he can't really create his own shot. In comparison to Jason Tatum, who still seems like he's got that shot creation down, right? And unfortunately, Jason Tatum wasn't able to play in Game 7 due to injury. I remember I was talking about this with John, our boy Straight Up Sports. And it was probably, we were thinking like, yeah, it was due to, obviously the Achilles injury. And at first we hear it's calf tightness in that same leg, which is always like, as soon as a player gets calf tightness, it's probably going to lead up to an Achilles injury. We've seen it happen every time, right? But then you find out it's knee tightness as well in the other leg, which you think is probably due to him overcompensating on that leg too. And that just completely changes Boston as a whole, because now they really rely on that 3-point line. And it feels like at times like Jason Tatum's their only real sense of inside pressure. Looking at how like iffy it was when it came to this team, like getting to the rim at times, like it felt like if they weren't hitting their threes, their offense would just go stagnant. And a big part of that is also the Sixers defense. Kelly Oubre and Paul George especially played like terrific defense. VJ Edgecombe did as well. Tyrese Maxey definitely was like the defensive weak link, but he also like did enough. He drew a lot of offensive fouls and he was there, right? He would foul a lot, especially in those first couple of games, but it seems like he got better over time. Quentin Grimes was like super like active, especially on ball, so he never really seemed to get picked on. Like we saw the in game 6 when he absolutely shut down Jaylen Brown, right? And Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. He's not the same athletic monster he used to be, where he can like take off and send every shot at the rim into the stands. But it still seemed like the Celtics were hesitant to go up on him, right? And I think a big part of that is just like his defensive instincts and defensive IQ are still like clearly there, right? While a guy like Andre Drummond, who's still solid rebounding wise, defensively, you can tell like there's a clear step back, which is why they seem like they were losing those Joel Embiid minutes. A big part you can take away from this, especially as a Celtics fan, is the Celtics bigs were hopelessly outmatched, right? I think Keita has had a great year, and he was probably their best one this series, but he super foul heavy, and he couldn't guard Tyrese Maxey. And I'm not, you don't ask him to guard him out in space on the perimeter, but, it seemed like anytime they put him into a pick and roll action, Maxey could just kind of blow by him or get whatever 3-point he wanted, right? And it's like that Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey pick and roll was just free eats right there. You saw the Celtics try to go small against Embiid, which kind of worked, but also not really. He was able to get whatever he wanted inside. He had over 30 points again. And when he didn't get whatever he wanted inside, he'd make the correct pass, right? And you saw he would only miss like certain bunnies, and you can kind of equate that to him just being exhausted and not really having the same lift off anymore. But it seemed like the Celtics had no answer for him, right? And, there was the famous like Peyton Pritchard quote where he was like, oh, we didn't really game plan for him, which doesn't really make sense, because they definitely did. Like they played it completely differently to when he was on the floor and when he wasn't. And if they didn't game plan for him, that's coaching malpractice, right? But yeah, the Celtics bigs were food. Vucevic was useless in this series because he couldn't guard a park call. He couldn't guard a traffic cone, right? He couldn't guard the air if you wanted him to. And Luka Garza couldn't really do much either, and so it was really Keita or nothing, and that just didn't work for them. I remember I saw a couple tweets about having Jason Tatum play the 5, see what he can do, but I don't think that would have worked either, because you don't want to get your main guy into foul trouble or really make him work on both sides of the ball to guard the other team's best player who's a big man, and then go on the offensive side and like really cook. So that was weird. But yeah, it's like watching the Sixers Celtics series. It kind of made sense, Celtics had a way better bench, but that Sixers death lineup is almost too good right now, right? Like, and it makes sense, because if the Sixers team is healthy all season, then that's like very clearly not a 7th seed. That's not a 8th seed, whatever. That's not a playing team. That's a top 3 conference team. That's a team that would be playing against like a playing team right now. So. You can equate that to that. I see a lot of Celtics fans kind of panicking right now, which I get. Jason Tatum seems like he's gotten another injury, but good thing is you don't have him going into the offseason again with another Achilles injury, right? Nothing major right now. It's just like he's got a rehab. He's probably not going to play ball for like a month or two, but he'll be back, right? And he'll be back next season too. Jaylen Brown had his best statistical season. Now, you know that there are limits on how good he can be as your primary guy. There's a ceiling, right? But, he's still really good. Where you have to work, right? You have to upgrade your front court. You have to really figure out these wings. You have to figure out why Derek White just could not shoot. Like, he was terrible. His defense was still good, but offensively he was just almost useless. Game 7, he had a good game, but he also had 3 made shots in the second half. So not really that good. Actually, I can just pull up the stats real quick. And in the first half, he played 45 minutes this game. For quarter 1, he had 7 points. 2, he had 12 points. And then over quarter 3 and quarter 4, he had 7 points, on wow, that's terrible. On about 3 of 13 shooting. So that's not good, right? So it's just a lot of things you can look at from a Sixers and Celtics perspective. But I'm happy for the Sixers. I'm happy for Joel Embiid. I'm happy for Tyrese Maxey. Also, big shout out to VJ Edgecombe, most playoff ready rookie. We saw this. He was great in the clutch all season, and he's outplayed his entire draft. Let's say it like that, But thank you guys for watching or listening, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.